We're gonna need. Yeah. What do you want there?
You don't let them get ready. When they're ready, they're not ready.
The solar I was telling you about. I'll talk to you. They have to do with this.
Okay, you're all set? Okay. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Planning Advisory Board meeting for January 6, 2021. Please stand for the pledge led by Member Warner. Okay, thank you. Mr. Byrne, please call the roll.
Certainly. Chairman Stanko.
Present.
Member Di Leonardo.
Present.
Member Chabina.
Here.
Member Warner. Member Castellane.
Present.
Member Byrne is present. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Okay, again, as I said, good evening. And the format for the meeting is that we will hear the presentation from the applicant, and then we will hear any questions or comments that the board may have. And usually we ask for interested parties to speak on the application for questions and comments. But the public has the ability to view and listen to the proceeding via live stream at www.oysterbay.com. The site plans, lead agency coordination letter, expanded environmental assessment, and the Department of Environmental Resources draft, Town Environmental Quality Review, that is. The reports are available for public viewing on the town's website at https://oysterbaytown.com/Amazon/. And any comments that people want to make can be emailed to Scott Byrne, our Executive Secretary, and his email is sbyrne, that's SBYRNE, @oysterbay-ny.gov. sbyrne@oysterbay-ny.gov. And I know we have already received some emails on that. Before we get started this evening, I'm going to ask Mr. Zeik to come up and explain how the Planning Advisory Board comes to review site plan applications. And Mr. Zeik is the Deputy Commissioner, as you may know, from the Department of Planning and Development, and he's going to give us a brief explanation of the process.
Good evening, Chairman Stanko, members of the Planning Advisory Board. For the record, Timothy Zeik, Deputy Commissioner for the Town of Oyster Bay, Department of Planning and Development. Mr. Chairman, just to give clarity, I know there were some inquiries as to how the site plan application evolves into the Planning Advisory Board reviewing an application. And just generally speaking, as the board's aware, but obviously for the benefit of the residents listening at home, I'll give you a brief overview of how the zoning and the site plan application process works. So in our town code, there's a chapter known as 246, which is our zoning code, that contains the rules and regulations for the development of properties within the unincorporated areas of the town of Oyster Bay. Specifically in that chapter, in chapter 246, there's a table 5.2, which is a schedule of use regulations that establishes zoning districts and permitted uses in each zoning district throughout the town. Additionally, in that chapter, there's another section 6, which dictates site plan review and gives the approval process for how site plan approvals come to fruition. And there's generally 4 different ways that site plans can be approved in the town. One could be through a town board action, where the town board has either a change of zone or a special use permit process. That site plan will be adopted as part of that process. There's processes that involve town board approval, which does require the planning advisory board to make a recommendation on a site plan, which would then go before the town board. There's strict uses that are defined by the code that gives site plan approval specifically to the planning advisory board. And then for the other uses that don't require town board or planning advisory board approval, the Department of Planning and Development can do an in-house site plan review. Now, the site plan application, when it goes through, it's a dichotomous process, and it runs parallel. When the property is looking, or an applicant is looking to develop a certain property in the town of Oyster Bay, the applicant's going to make an application for site plan approval to the Department of Planning and Development, and at the same time, the applicant will also file an application with the town's Department of Environmental Resources for review and compliance with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Maybe in a little bit, I could turn over to George Baptista. He's the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Resources, and give a brief overview of how the environmental process and the environmental review takes place prior to site plan approval. So as I said, when the applicant submits their plan and their application to the department, it's reviewed in conformance with Section 6 and Section 7 of our zoning chapter. And that chapter usually dictates the plans that get reviewed by the planning division. Off-street parking requirements, landscaping, building height, building setbacks, building coverage, lighting and photometric plans, soil and erosion control plans, stormwater management plans, snow management plans, just to name a few. There's typically comments between our planning division and the applicant that go back and forth over a proposed site plan. Once the site plan can be submitted and it's deemed to be completed and compliant with the town zoning code, it'll then be referred to the Planning Advisory Board. I just want to make it clear, though, that the planning division, they're not there to design the actual site plan. They're there to critique it and ensure compliance with the town's zoning and site plan requirements. During the planning division's review and of the site plan application, other involved agencies, such as the Department of Environmental Resources, the New York State Department of Transportation, and perhaps even the Nassau County Department of Public Works, just to name a few, have input and will submit comments as part of that process. Once all the comments and approvals are received by the planning division will then refer it to the Planning Advisory Board for a hearing. The board at that point could make any recommendations or changes to the site plan. As I mentioned earlier, the use of the property is already regulated by Chapter 246 of the code, and as the board members are aware, this Planning Advisory Board is an advisory board and will review and make comments on site planning issues only. Just talking specifically now with the case before you, the applicant's trying to develop a property which is located in an LI or light industrial property in the town of Oyster Bay, and it's a proposed warehouse and distribution center. It's a permitted as of right use, and it doesn't require any approvals or special determinations by the town board or anyone else. Again, the use is permitted, and at this point, the Planning Advisory Board will review the site, like I said, for compliance with site plan rules and regulations. So at this point, I'll ask if the board has any questions. I tried to keep it very general.
Anyone? No, I think, go ahead.
Wonderful.
Proceed to the next.
Thank you, and Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd ask, if you don't mind, you could have Mr. George Baptista, Deputy Commissioner of Environmental Resources,
Okay,
touch upon the environmental review.
great, thank you.
I'll make myself available for the board during the night if there's any questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Advisory
Evening.
Board members. I'm George Baptista, Deputy Commissioner, Department of Environmental Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'd like to briefly explain the environmental review process and provide the board members who I'm sure are familiar with the environmental review process, but more importantly, the general public that may be watching, give them some insight into exactly how we got where we are tonight. We want to ensure that the general public understands that we've fully complied with the requirements of Chapter 617 of the New York State Code, Rules and Regulations, the Environmental Conservation Law, which establishes the guidelines for the application of the SEQR process. As I make my presentation to you, you'll hear me refer to DER several times as I get towards the end of my presentation. That's simply an acronym for the Department of Environmental Resources. It will be a little monotonous to repeat it time after time after time. We'll start with exactly how the application is classified, because that's an important aspect of exactly how we do our review and exactly the steps that are required. So this is a type 1 action, and simply what that means, it exceeds certain thresholds established in 617. And those thresholds are set so that a type 1 action, they believe, may have significant impacts on the environment, and all reasonable foreseeable potential impacts must be analyzed during the environmental review process, which was done thoroughly. For example, the SEQR threshold for site disturbance is 10 acres at approximately 39 acres. All right, the subject site exceeds that amount and is classified as a type 1 action. Thus, a full environmental assessment form must be prepared, and lead agency coordination must be conducted with all the involved agencies. An involved agency is an agency that has discretionary decision-making power with respect to an aspect or the whole project. Notifications were sent to the Nassau County Planning Commission, Nassau County Department of Public Works, Nassau County Industrial Development Agency, New York State Department of Health, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, their Division of Environmental Remediation, the Regional Permit Administrator, the Division of Environmental Permits. Notification was additionally sent to Long Island Railroad, Metropolitan Transit Authority, the Jericho Water District, PSE&G Long Island, National Grid, and the New York State Department of Transportation. SEQR requires, during the review, to a phrase they use is a hard look. And that's to make sure, all right, that really we look at the aspects of an application, all right, from the environmental view. And that was certainly done here, that hard look. And it's really important to understand that the applicant submitted nearly 2,000 pages in their expanded environmental assessment form. So this is not simply a check-the-box kind of approach to this. You'll see that their application, their expanded environmental assessment form, is really, really quite detailed and really quite thorough. When we look at the steps, I'll go through the steps that we took to do the environmental review and the assessment. On September 10th, we prepared the lead agency coordination letter to those agencies I listed earlier. And there's a 30-day period for comments from the lead agencies back to us. We received the expanded environmental assessment form that I just spoke about a minute ago on 9/24, and we reviewed the submittal and prepared a comment letter back to the applicant. We had several comments about their submittal that we wanted to see addressed or at least clarified in some degree, and that was prepared on October 15th. The submitted expanded environmental assessment form, utilizing the service of traffic consultant LKMA, LK McLean Associates, through PW Grosser, reviewed the traffic impact study done by the applicant. We prepared the draft TEQR report and the recommended determination of significance, which provides substantiation to the lead agency, the Planning Advisory Board, for adopting a negative declaration pursuant to SEQR. It should be noted that the TEQR report was provided in draft form in advance of the PAB hearing tonight, so the public had the opportunity to review it and provide comments on it. There's no SEQR requirement to do so, so the town is going above and beyond, all right, to listen to the public and consider substantive comments prior to finalization of the TEQR report. After this meeting, any changes incorporated into the proposed project suggested by the PAB will be considered on our final TEQR report for the subject to proposed action. Upon completion of the presentation by the applicant, Ms. Julia Schneider is here to answer any technical questions regarding our preparation and our review of the expanded environmental assessment form. I would just ask the advisory board to kindly note, though, that we're more than happy and more than prepared to answer your questions as we prepared our technical review, but it's the applicant's place, and it would not be our place to misrepresent or misspeak on the applicant's proposal and their presentation. So does anybody have any questions for me at this point?
Questions?
Very well. We're still here if you have any questions after the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you both for the updates and presentations. We have one agenda item this evening, Syosset Park Development LLC, 305 Robbins Lane in Syosset. The applicant is seeking a site plan recommendation from the Planning Advisory Board in accordance with the town's site design standards. The applicant is proposing the construction of a 204,169 square foot, one-story warehouse distribution center with associated site improvements. The proposed use for the subject property is a permitted use pursuant to Chapter 246, Table 5.2 of the Code of the Town of Oyster Bay. And with that, we will hear the presentation. And as you speak and address the board, please state your name and address for the record. Oh, and just a second. Before we start, do we have any correspondence on this, Secretary?
We do, Chairman. We have a memo from the zoning division dated July 10th, 2020, stating the subject property located at 305 Robbins Lane, Syosset, New York, 11791, has a Nassau County land and tax map designation of Section 15, Block H, lots 251 and 252, and is located within the LI Light Industry zoning district. We have a draft TECR memo from the Department of Environmental Resources dated December 15th, 2020, recommending the adoption of a negative declaration for the purposes of seeker. We have a memo from the Code Enforcement Division dated July 9th, 2020, stating there are no open code cases for the subject property. We have a memo from the Highway Department dated January 5th, 2021, stating that all work must be constructed to Highway Department specifications, and they have no objection to the issuance of a building permit for the project. We have correspondence from the Nassau County Department of Public Works dated December 21st, 2020, stating although they have not completed their entire review, they have no objection with the town issuing a building permit for the excavation and installation of the proposed foundation pursuant to New York State General Municipal Law 239F. We have resolution number 10,400-20 dated December 10th, 2020 from the Nassau County Planning Commission recommending local determination for this project. We have a memo from the Planning Division dated December 1st, 2020, stating the required parking for the subject site is 1,568 parking spaces, and 1,603 parking spaces have been provided. We have another memo from the Planning Division dated December 23rd, 2020, stating that the applicant has satisfied all of the division's concerns relative to the code of the Town of Oyster Bay as they pertain to the site plan alterations proposed in this application. We have the affidavit of sign posting and affidavit of mailing from the applicant. We also have correspondence from Rabbi Kravinsky residing in the East Birchwood section of Jericho, New York, 11753, dated December 30th, 2020. We have correspondence from Rosemary Rosenblum residing at 289 Southwood Circle, Syosset, New York, 11791, dated January 5th, 2021. We have correspondence from Jeffrey Feltman residing at 216 Martin Drive, Syosset, New York, 11791, dated January 6, 2021. We have correspondence from Chris D. Filippo residing at 75 Kerry Way, Woodbury, New York, 11797, dated January 6, 2021. We have correspondence from Dr. Thomas Rogers, Superintendent of Syosset Central School District, dated January 6, 2021. Chairman, the board and the applicant have received copies of these correspondence from the public prior to tonight's meeting, and they have been made part of the permanent record.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jeff Forcelli. I'm a partner in the firm of Forcelli, Deegan, and Tarana, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York. And we represent the applicant Syosset Park Development, LLC. I guess a lot of what we would usually say has already been said by the town and giving you all the information and telling you the process that we went through. It was a very comprehensive, complete process where virtually anything that can be studied was studied and was studied in a very thorough and complete manner. First, getting with the premises, it's 39 plus acres on the northeast corner of Robbins Lane and Miller Place being the westbound service road of the Long Island Expressway. This is the former Cerro Wire property. It's Section 15, Block H, lots 251 and 252, less the small parcel on the southwest corner of the premises, which is still owned by the Syosset Park Development, but is not part of the demised premises and to be used by the tenant. This is a small parcel, and we refer to it as the beautification parcel. It's right on the corner of Miller Place and the Robbins Lane, right in this area. Just a little beautification. The property is zoned LI Light Industrial, and this parcel is not affiliated with any other adjacent parcel and is solely the former Cerro Wire property. The recent history of the property is that until about 1980, the site was a Cerro Wire plant, and it was used by them for many years. After it closed, in the early 80s, there were a number of proposals for use of this property, and none of them was received well by the community or had much favor with the town of Oyster Bay. The original one was a retail mall with over 1 million square feet of retail space. It required a change of zone to take it out of an industrial property, which made it a town board action. As I said, there was a great deal of public controversy. There was, in addition to that, a great deal of litigation over it that went on and on and on forever. The owners won, the town won. If you recall going through it, the owner won, the town won, but nothing ever got done. Finally, that application was abandoned around 2013 or 14. And in connection with that, there was a referendum, some kind of referendum in the town. But anyway, that was the history of that application. Then subsequent to that, Syosset Park was proposed for use. It was a mixed unit development that also required not only a change of zone, I think it required a complete new zoning district to permit the mixed use and so on. It was a very complex application. It was over 2,100,000 square feet, which is quite extensive. It was also met with enormous community opposition, and that application was withdrawn this past year. The current proposal before you is for site plan approval for a 204,000 square foot warehouse and delivery station. It is roughly 10% of the building is roughly 10% of the square footage of the last application. It fully complies, as indicated earlier, with the Town of Oyster Bay Light Industrial District. There are no variances required, and no variances have been requested. As I mentioned earlier, the environmental review done has been completed and is in the possession of the board. One thing we prepared for this evening is it's an aerial photo upon which we've superimposed the proposed property. And as you can see, its distances from residences are, this is the northwest corner, would be plus or minus 750 feet away. It's separated by industrial uses and the railroad. On the northeast side, it's 1,050 feet. On the east side to Colony Lane residences, it's 870 feet. You have 950 feet beyond the town service roads and extensive noise attenuation walls, 460 feet. In our presentation tonight, we're going to give you a thorough overview of the proposal, which we believe is well thought out and is a good as-of-right use, and has been submitted after having reviewed everything that happened in the past and things that upset the community, and trying to find a use for a piece of property that is permitted as of right and which is much substantially smaller than what was proposed in the past. The witnesses that I will call upon this evening are Terry Elkowitz from VHB, which she will talk about the site and its comparison with prior applications. Brad Griggs from Amazon, who will talk about the use and explain to you how the site works from an operational point of view. Barry Cohn from Settleman Ballin, who is a attorney, or a environmental attorney, who will talk to you about the cleanup that was done on the site and what's proposed for it. And Pat Lenahan from VHB, who is our traffic expert. In addition, once I go through these experts, we'll be prepared to answer any questions you have, and we have other people who are also experts here who could testify, who could answer questions that you may have. So if there's nothing,
I was just going to ask, do you have the affidavit of posting?
We do.
You do have that, okay, good, okay.
Mr. Forcelli, if I could just make a comment, when you refer to the boards, if we could just stay by the mic, you and your team, so that the public viewing at home can listen on.
Okay.
When you step away from the mic, they just can't hear.
okay,
So
thank
if you and
you.
your team can stay by the mic, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Chairman, with your permission, first witness I'd like to call is Terry Elkowitz from VHB.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. While she's, Scott, while she's setting up, I don't know if it's, can those numbers be put on the website so people can see the red markings? I don't know if they're on there now, or can they be added to one of the maps, or?
Yeah,
Or just-
if the applicant would email me, we can put that up on the website, yes.
Okay, all right. Jeff, I don't know if you heard, if we can get those red numbers that you read out, if we can get them on an email or a smaller, just so it's on there so they can actually see. I don't know if they have it at this point, but, you know, if you can get it and put it on a map. You know what I mean, right? Okay, thank you, okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Terry Elkowitz, and I'm a Senior Vice President at VHB with offices at 100 Motor Parkway in Hauppauge. And I've been working with this property owner for quite some time. I've been working with them on the development of this application for a warehouse and delivery station. And I was also the lead consultant on the Syosset Park multi-use project that was brought before the town board years ago. As Mr. Forcelli said, there was significant public interest in that Syosset Park mixed-use project. And the property owner heard the comments of the community, during the public hearing and during the written public comment section. But when you looked at the myriad comments that we received, they really focused on three major issues. The first was the potential disturbance to the town landfill property. The second was the potential for generation of school-age children, and the third was traffic generation. And as the developer and the property owner were thinking about this project, they seriously considered the comments on the prior application. And I can tell you, based upon the expanded environmental assessment that was prepared by my firm, that this application either fully eliminates or significantly reduces the concerns that were expressed by the community on the prior application. Now, before you is a chart that compares the differences between the prior application and this application. I'm not going to read everything on that chart, and Mr. Chairman, we can provide you a copy of that chart as well
Yes, that's a
when we
great idea.
provide you
And
with
then
the-
put it on the Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But as you can see, and Mr. Forcelli alluded to this, from a zoning perspective, the prior application required the creation of a new zoning district and the rezoning of this property to that district. This proposed application fully complies with the town's light industrial zoning. From the perspective of land area, the last application involved 92.8 acres of property, of which approximately 54 acres were town-owned property. This current application involves 39 acres of completely privately owned property. No town property is involved or included in this application. When you look at the construction duration, the prior application was proposing an approximately 5-year multi-phased construction period, where the current application includes an approximately 10-month, one-phase construction period. From a building area perspective, and again, Mr. Forcelli alluded to this, the prior application had about over 2 million square feet of building area, with building heights of up to 5 stories and 60 feet. As you've heard, this is an approximately 204,000 square foot building, and it's 1 story. And it's really quite remarkable that this application has 84% less FAR, floor to area ratio, than the prior application. Obviously, the concern around school-age children was related to the fact the prior application had 625 residential units and approximately 1,600 residents and 243 school-age children. This application obviously has none of that and would have no direct impact from school-age children because there would be none. The proposed delivery center will use a fraction of the water than when you compare it to Syosset Park, and it will generate substantially less sewage and solid waste than the prior application. With respect to stormwater, the prior application, while it had an on-site system, would have had overflow to the Nassau County system. This application will contain and recharge all stormwater on-site. And finally, although you will hear traffic testimony, when you look at vehicular trips, unlike the prior application, the vehicular trips generated from this application will not coincide with weekday AM or PM peak commuter periods or with weekend roadway peak hours. So this application, in my professional opinion, will address all of the substantive issues that were raised by the community on the prior application. Moreover, as demonstrated in the expanded environmental assessment that we have prepared and submitted and that the town has reviewed, this project, which conforms to zoning in all respects, will not result in significant adverse environmental impacts. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Okay, anyone have a question? Could you just expound on the peak traffic times that you mentioned?
So Mr. Lenahan, who is a traffic expert from VHB and who prepared the traffic impact study, will be testifying very shortly, and he'll
Okay,
be able to
all
go
right.
into those details.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
We have, or I believe we have on the phone, we had him earlier on the phone, Brad Griggs, who is from Amazon, and he's Regional Director of Amazon, and I'd like him to testify at this point regarding the use of the property and how Amazon proposes to use it, and giving you all the information that will help you understand what this is all about. Are you there, Brad?
Yes, Jeff, can you hear me? Members
Yes.
of the board, Mr. Chair, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Jeff, is the color-coded site plan up on the easel?
It will be in one moment. Now it is. Now it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Brad Griggs. I'm a senior manager on Amazon's economic development team. I lead our expansion and economic development government relations efforts throughout the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region. Based out of our New York City offices located on 34th Street in Manhattan. Before you is a color-coded site plan of the proposed location there at the intersection of Miller Place and Robbins Lane for what, for us at Amazon, we refer to as a last-mile delivery station. What I'd like to do is walk you through a day in the life of operations at one of our delivery stations, like the one here that is before you. On the left-hand side of the diagram, you can see a large red truck court. That is where the line haul or 18-wheeler tractor trailers will be coming to this site. They will come predominantly during off-peak hours with anywhere from about 70 to 80% of the tractor trailers arriving to this site on a daily basis outside of the peak periods during the day, so during the predominantly overnight, early morning, and midday periods were when those trucks would arrive on site. On the right-hand side of the diagram is our yellow personal vehicle parking area. So our Amazon associates will arrive, again, predominantly during the overnight period, to unload those tractor trailers. They will utilize a conveyance system inside of the building to stage the packages by zip code for their delivery routes on baker's racks in large duffel bags and set them ready for the morning's delivery cycle to begin. In the upper right-hand corner, there's an additional yellow area. That is for parking for the van drivers who will be coming to the site to park their personal vehicles on location. So the upper right-hand corner is van personal vehicle parking for the van drivers. Then you move over to the blue area in the top and left-hand side of the diagram. That blue area will have Amazon branded parking vehicles in the blue area parked overnight, waiting for the van drivers to arrive on site. The van drivers will park their personal vehicles. They will get into the vans that are waiting there on site, and the first van drivers will drive into the green loading zones on the top side of the building as you're looking at it, and on the bottom side of the building as you're looking at it directly from above, or on the east and west side of the buildings directionally from looking at the site. The green loading areas each have 80 vans on either side of the building. Those are external to the building itself under a canopy area. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to load each one of the vans. They will be loaded alongside of an Amazon associate with each van driver. While those vans are being loaded, those first waves will come on site a little before 10 a.m. The drivers will drive into the zone and will be loading right before 10 a.m. in the morning, after the morning rush hour period typically concludes. During that 20-minute period, the next wave of van drivers will arrive on site. They will park their personal vehicles in the yellow area. They will get in their vans and drive into the two purple areas, which are the staging areas, to head into loading. So the purple areas on the left-hand side of the diagram and at the top of the diagram, those are staging areas for our van drivers. After the 20-minute loading cycle, those vans will leave the location. The vans on the Plan East side of the building will head onto Miller Place. The vans on the west side of the building will head out the entrance closest to on Robbins Lane, closest to the LIE. The tractor trailer entrance on Robbins Lane is a ingress point only. It is an entrance only on Robbins Lane into the truck court for only the tractor trailers that are heading northbound on Robbins Lane. It is not, due to the curvature of the lane, an ingress point for any vehicle heading southbound at that location. The exit point that, as you can see, have green and red arrows at the exit point on Robbins Lane closest to the LIE, that is an exit only for the vans and for the trucks heading out of the site. At which point now the purple vans will fill in the green vans, and the cycle will repeat itself throughout that late morning period until approximately 12:30 in the afternoon, when the van disbursements will conclude. at which point the site will go quiet. We do utilize a program called Amazon Flex, which is essentially a delivery service where people can sign up to be an Amazon Flex driver to utilize their personal vehicles to deliver packages for us. So similar to Uber or Lyft, where people use their personal vehicles to get people to their destinations, Amazon Flex utilizes personal vehicle drivers and their vehicles to deliver our packages. At this location, we anticipate approximately 75 Flex drivers on average, so we would be utilizing predominantly one side of the building. The Flex drivers would be given a designated time to arrive at the site. They would drive into the loading area, they would load their personal vehicles, and head out. Those Flex drivers in their personal vehicles do not return to the site unless they have an undeliverable package. If they do, we will give them a designated area in the employee parking area to bring that package back, park, and return it to the site. After that Flex period has concluded, the site will again go quiet, and then the vans will begin returning to the site. The vans have an approximately 10-hour delivery route worth of packages in their vans. So the first van drivers who head out at 10 a.m. from this site or a little after will be returning to the location at approximately 7 p.m. They will drive back under the canopy. They will undergo a safety check and review of their route. They will then park the van back in the blue area. They will get in their personal vehicle and head home. So just as the vans leave the site in waves, they come back in the same sort of 20 to 30 minute waves to the location. They undergo a safety check and delivery route review, park their vans, get in their personal vehicles, and head home for the night. At which point, the site will go quiet until the tractor trailers begin arriving back on site, our associates come back on site, and the process repeats itself for the next day.
I have a question.
So with that, I'll pause for any questions from Mr. Chair or from members of the board.
Where do they gas up?
So the vans themselves will be fueling off-site. We encourage our van drivers to fuel on their way back at the end of their delivery routes so that when the next day a new van driver arrives, their vehicle is full. However, that does not always occur, but they fuel off-site. There will be no fueling at the location.
Okay, thank you.
We may utilize, potentially mobile fueling in the future, but at this time, we fuel all vehicles off-site.
Okay, good.
Excuse me, Member Warner. You said that the vans would come back, let's say 7 o'clock, and we have 80 vans on each side of the building. Would all of those 80 vans go out in the morning, and would they all be returning at 7 o'clock? I mean, that could really put a strain on the infrastructure of Robbins Lane and of the service road.
So they do come back in disbursements. They're not choreographed to come back at exactly the same time. But it would be between 7 and, say, 7:30 would be the first wave coming back to the location.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Warner, one of the things that was designed into the site, in which the town was very concerned about, as we were, was vehicles backing up onto Miller Place. The only way you can get back into the site for vans or cars is through Miller Place. This is just an exit on Robbins Lane. So, sorry. If you look at the entrance, which is the eastern entrance coming in off Miller Place, there's a very long run there. So if trucks come 10, 15 at a time, there's no backup because there's tremendous queuing. And then the vans go into the van parking lot, and they don't conflict with the cars that are in the driver's parking lot. So we believe, and we were very cognizant of this because of the Best Page properties, that it be designed properly, and we think we've done a very good job with it.
Yeah, but okay. My Robbins Lane and South Oyster Bay Road, heading, heading west.
I'd like, do you want to wait to speak with our traffic expert? You know, I could talk in general terms, but not the specifics on that with the traffic counts.
How do you handle the refuse pickup or boxes? I don't know if you have any, how much you have with a facility like that? How do you handle the garbage pickup?
This is Andrew Nee from VHB.
Good evening, Chairman.
Good evening.
Members of the Planning Board. So to answer the question regarding carting of refuse and recycling, that will be done by a private carter at a schedule that's based on the use of the site. So there won't be any, there's a dedicated dumpster refuse in the truck court. There's a ramp that brings them out from the warehouse to that refuse enclosure. All refuse will go into there. It'll be kept tidy.
Okay, could you just point it out on the
Absolutely.
on the plan? Right in there, okay.
Correct. In the truck court, and again, a CMU block refuse enclosure.
Do you does a facility like that generate quite a bit, or?
Well, and Brad can speak to this as well, but there's no packaging of goods here. As the deliveries are brought to the site in tractor trailers, they're
Set.
prepackaged, pre-labeled. So it goes onto the conveyance system and then gets loaded into the vans for that last mile. So there's no, there's a small,
Just-
14,000 square feet worth of office space for managers. There might be, some recycling and
Right.
trash from that.
Okay.
There's a lounge for the employees, the drivers and such. So there is some refuse. We estimated at about 2 tons per day, but that's probably, I would say, conservative based on the use because this isn't, your typical facility.
So it gets picked up once a day?
As necessary,
as
based on the
necessary.
private carter that
Oh,
will
okay.
do this, yes.
And is there a facility, like a cafeteria, or you
There's no
just have a-
cafeteria, it's a lounge.
Just a lounge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a generator on site?
There is no generator proposed, no permanent generator. They are putting in infrastructure for an emergency connection should we have a power outage. They could bring in a temporary, but there's no permanent generator proposed.
Oh, so you'd bring one of the big
A
ones
trailer,
in?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
exactly.
I see there are plans for electric vehicles in the future, and plans to be carbon neutral by 2040. I was just wondering what your plans are doing out there. Are you going to do solar on the roof or
Sure.
higher?
So from that standpoint, and Andrew, you can speak to the planning around the infrastructure for the site as it relates to EV, but we are in the process of evaluating that in real time. So the commercial you're referencing mentions, 100,000 vehicles by 2030 and our climate pledge by 2040. The hope is that the first 10,000 of those vehicles will be dispersed by the end of 2022. And so we've had to, basically stand up a commercial electric vehicle manufacturing supply chain with a company called Rivian in order to manufacture this fleet, as there's not a commercial electric vehicle manufacturer really in North America at this time. And so we're in the process of understanding exactly what is in our pipeline and where those vehicles will be distributed to. Andrew, I think you can speak to how we have designed the site to allow for those EVs to be deployed at this location, at the proposed location.
Absolutely. So there's 696 van spaces on the site, the area shaded in blue. And at the head of each of those parking spaces, there's a concrete strip that's being installed with conduits in place so that when the time comes, when the infrastructure is already in the ground, for them to pull electrical wires, the conduits are there. They don't have to rip up the site and start from scratch when the appropriate time comes to implement that EV charging.
Okay.
I had asked the question before, which I will defer till the traffic expert gets up. So, thank you. I was under the impression that it wasn't heard on the live cast. So,
Oh, understood. Yeah.
Okay.
One other question. I believe that you have, or are using parking along Underhill Boulevard in Syosset. Amazon vans are filling that area now. Are they going to be accommodated on this new location and be removed from that parking facility?
Brad, would you like to take that one?
I'm sorry. It broke up for me, Andrew. If you could repeat it, you come through a little clearer.
Yep. So the inquiry was regarding the facility on Underhill Boulevard where there's existing Amazon vans today.
Okay, so that lot is a off-site parking lot that helps to service the Bethpage location. That site is unrelated to this site. We have designed this location as a ground-up development to allow for the efficiencies of use to encompass all the parking that this site would need on location in order to operate it. It's something we've learned from our legacy locations like the one in Bethpage, that when we're able to design these sites or when we're able to bring new sites online, we want to make sure to try and maximize that parking availability to meet the needs of the site, so we do not have to utilize off-site parking when making these ground-up, state-of-the-art new developments like the one we're proposing here at the location on Miller Place.
Just a general question, what's the radius for, like, what areas will you service out of this site? How far out will you go?
So these locations, these delivery stations service a 45-minute drive time. Now, on Long Island and in Nassau and Suffolk, 45 minutes in different areas of the island mean very different things as far as how much distance you can cover, and so that will depend on where our customer base is. But more importantly, it's going to depend on where our future delivery station network is able to put future stations. So these locations service no more than a 45-minute drive time, but it's not going to be a direct circle around this site. The majority of the vehicles heading out of this site, as Mr. Linehan and Andrew will indicate later in the presentation, will be heading directly onto the service road. However, the zip codes that these facilities will operate and deliver to does change over time as other stations are brought online. So where this delivery station may deliver to is not always going to be the same, but it will service a roughly 45-minute drive time with the zip codes predominantly, in the same direction. However, it may modify. It may head, and cover parts of Massapequa, and then parts of Amityville, parts of Lindenhurst, etc., point south. But then if another delivery station were to locate itself in Copiague or Yaphank or somewhere in Suffolk County along the South Shore, it may shift and now service areas east and south of this location, or push further west and south as the map shifts and other future delivery stations come online.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Next, I'd like to call on Barry Cohn from Sir Tillman Ballin regarding the ground conditions and the history of cleanup on the site.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Barry Cohen. I'm a partner at Sir Tillman Ballin, Adler, and Hyman, 90 Merrick Avenue, East Meadow, New York, and I'm environmental counsel for the applicant. I want to thank you for the opportunity to discuss the environmental status of the property. Just so it's clear, when I'm referring to using the term property, I'm referring to the 39-acre site and not the town landfill or any of the town property. This particular piece of property has been subject to over 3 decades of environmental investigations. Starting back in the 80s and 90s, hundreds of soil samples were collected at multiple locations in various depths on the property. And not one, not two, but 5 separate groundwater investigations were performed. And all of that work was performed pursuant to work plans approved by the state agencies involved. After the facility went through decommissioning process, which was also performed under the oversight of the state agencies, including the Department of Environmental Conservation, and after the performance of a risk assessment, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the New York State Department of Health reviewed all of the data collected from the property, and based upon that review, determined that the property does not pose a significant threat to human health or the environment. After some minor soil cleanup activities, after that determination, the state removed the property from the list of sites that require attention and subsequently issued a no further action letter, signifying that no further cleanup or investigation was required. And when they issued that no further action letter, they didn't impose any restrictions on the future use of the property. Despite the fact that there are no restrictions on the property, when the applicant was considering redevelopment of the property, it required that the property be reassessed, that the environmental condition be reassessed, and it did so for 3 reasons. First, it had been some time since the property was investigated. Second, it recognized that since it was last investigated, the state had promulgated new cleanup standards that were stricter, and so it wanted the environmental status of the property reviewed with those stricter standards in mind. And third, based on concerns expressed from the community, it wanted to make sure that the new assessment would be done under a program that would guarantee, that would mandate community participation. So, in 2016, it applied for and was granted entry into the New York State Brownfield Cleanup Program. The Brownfield Cleanup Program, as you may know, is legislation that was designed to encourage the safe reuse of idle industrial properties such as the former Sierra Wire property. In connection with this BCP, this Brownfield Cleanup Program, the applicant collected hundreds of additional soil samples, again from multiple locations and multiple depths of the property. So at this point, we have more than 750 soil samples that were collected from the property and submitted to laboratories for analysis. In addition, the applicant conducted additional groundwater investigation and performed soil vapor sampling. All of the new information, as well as all of the old information, was summarized and provided again in reports to the New York State Department of Health and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and they ruled again that the property does not present a significant threat to human health or the environment. However, as part of that determination, they found that the groundwater was not impacted by prior operations at the site, and that soil vapor intrusion was not a risk. However, because there were residual levels of certain metals and petroleum compounds in the subsurface, under the BCP, under the Brownfield Cleanup Program's requirements, a remedy of some sort was required. So, the remedy that will be installed at the site is designed to eliminate exposure to the underlying soils. It's the primary component or element of the remedy is an engineering control referred to as a site-wide cover system. This is a remedy that's been used at literally hundreds of sites across the state and many other sites on Long Island. The principal components of the site-wide cover system are hardscape at this property, and by hardscape I'm referring to the foundations of the buildings, concrete paving, asphalt paving, and in the limited areas of proposed landscape, 1 foot minimum of clean soil, and that's soil that has to meet the very strict analytical requirements of the DEC. Pursuant to the DEC's regulations, the site-wide cover system has to be certified by a New York State licensed professional engineer on an annual basis, subject to perjury. And that certification has to state whether or not the remedy, the site-wide cover system, is still intact and is functioning as designed. Other elements of the remedy that would be employed at the site include a variety of mitigation measures to make sure that site development activities, the site construction activities, and the installation of the site-wide cover do not adversely affect neighboring property owners or the site workers themselves. So just to summarize briefly, the site has been investigated for more than 3 decades. The state agencies involved have determined on 2 occasions now that the site does not pose a risk to human health or the environment. And through the application of the remedy that's going to be implemented and all the mitigation measures that are required, the property can be developed in a manner that's safe to the current and future neighboring property owners, as well as the site workers involved in the construction activities and the future employees and users of the property. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Will there be any monitors in the building for any potential determination?
No, so there was soil vapor sampling that was performed, and it didn't indicate any soil vapor intrusion problem, so that was deemed unnecessary by the agencies.
Mr. Baptista, you want to add anything or underline anything that was just said about the environmental? Because I know that was an issue. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
As mentioned before, I'll call on Pat Lenahan now with regard to traffic. Pat is an engineer with VHB.
Good evening, Chairman Stanko, members of the board. My name is Patrick Lenahan. I'm the Director of Transportation at VHB's Long Island office with an address at 100 Motor Parkway in Hopog. Good evening. VHB has performed a detailed traffic impact study to evaluate the potential impacts to transportation associated with the proposed development of this last mile delivery station. The traffic study was performed in accordance with standard traffic engineering practices and procedures and included with the submitted environmental assessment form. The study was reviewed by the town's Department of Environmental Resources, the DER, the town's professional traffic engineering review consultant, the Nassau County Department of Public Works, and the New York State Department of Transportation. All substantive comments have been addressed at this point. The study evaluated such elements as they typically do as traffic safety, site access, parking, existing traffic conditions, and then future traffic conditions. And Mr. Warner, when I get to it, I'll answer your specific question. It's important to note, and it's been mentioned a few times previous, the specific nature of the site's operation as it relates to traffic on the adjacent street system. The site will not generate a significant level of traffic during what we refer to as traditional peak periods of roadway traffic, or in layman's terms, the commuter peaks, the AM and PM peak period, where there could be congestion on the roadways because all folks are out going back and forth to work. The site is more active later in the morning, and by late in the morning, I'm talking about 10 to 11 o'clock, after the AM peak commuter period has died down significantly, and later in the evening, when we're busiest, between 8 and 9 p.m., late afternoon before the onset of the evening. And again, all the peak commuter activities there are at that time period have basically subsided. This helps the site operate in serving the community more efficiently, as well as allowing the roadway system to accommodate the additional traffic more easily. In total, as noted previously, the site will be served by a total of 4 access points, 2 on Miller Place, otherwise known as the Long Island Expressway North Service Road, and 2 on Robbins Lane. The configuration and use of these access points are key to the site's operation and will minimize impacts on local roadways. The site is located adjacent to the Long Island Expressway, and through thoughtful design, will operate to get the majority of the site's traffic on and off the site efficiently, as I will describe. The access points on Miller Place will be constructed with auxiliary deceleration lanes to provide ease of entering traffic. The eastern access includes a very long 800 feet clear driveway throat prior to the first turn into the parking area, assuring no backups to Miller Place. The study included the evaluation of the operation of the town DPW properties access points to assure no interference with town operations. The site has been designed to provide for appropriate circulation of all vehicle types and emergency vehicles. With regard to tractor-trailer deliveries, all arriving trucks will approach the site on the LIE from the west and enter the northern access point on Robbins Lane. This is a truck entrance only, northbound only, and allows only right turns into the site. They will leave via the southern access on Robbins Lane, which will be signalized, via a left turn out of the site to the LIE and leave to the west. No tractor trailers will travel on Robbins Lane north of the northern driveway or on local roadways. Delivery van drivers arriving and departing the site in their personal vehicles will use the easterly access on Miller Place only. In the late morning, they will arrive via this access, park in designated spaces, and move to a delivery van. Brad spoke to some length about what happens with the delivery vans and how they move about the site. Loaded delivery vans will leave the site, half via the eastern access on Miller Place and half via the southern signalized exit on Robbins Lane. Only a small percentage of delivery vans will travel north on Robbins Lane, vans that will be delivering locally in that direction only. The major portion of the vans are destined for the LIE to points east and west, with some on major roadways like Broadway and 106, 107. Again, this traffic occurs outside of traditional commuter peak periods and is concentrated to and from the LIE. When the delivery van shifts end in the evening, the vans return via that same eastern access. The drivers park the vans, enter their personal vehicles, and leave the same way. Van drivers leaving after their shifts do not leave via Robbins Lane. The third component of the traffic at the site, warehouse employees and managers who work in the building itself, would use the western access on Miller Place. It should be noted that in majority, these employees arrive and depart, again, off the traditional peak periods. I want to touch on the proposed access plan, the proposed use of the site, and concerns that have been raised regarding cut-through traffic in area neighborhoods. First, this is not a retail site or a residential site. This is a last-mile delivery station. The trips to and from the site will be based on employment at the site and the use of delivery vehicles. Furthermore, the access to the site is such that it will not encourage the use of Robbins Lane or any cut-through of the East Birchwood neighborhood off Robbins Lane. There is no site entry from Robbins Lane, with the exception of tractor trailers arriving from the Long Island Expressway. All employees will enter and exit via Miller Place. The vast majority of delivery vehicles will be destined for the LIE, with only a small percentage to the north on Robbins Lane for delivery in that area. The off-peak trip generation characteristics of the site operations coincide with good traffic flow on major roadways. Very little traffic will utilize Robbins Lane, and there will be no incentive to cut through the neighborhood to the northwest. Similarly, there's no incentive to cut through the Locust Grove or Birchwood at Syosset neighborhoods to the south. The location of the site adjacent to the Long Island Expressway is ideal in this way. With respect to parking, the site will provide 1,603 parking spaces, exceeding town code requirements of 1,568. which is adequate to support the site's proposed operations. In regard to traffic impacts on the surrounding roadway system, the detailed study of conditions reveals only small increases in delay and only minor impacts at the 12 study intersections as a result of the site's operation. Again, the site will generate peak traffic levels later in the morning and the evening, outside of the congestion associated with commuter peak periods. In these later periods, the roadway system can readily accommodate site traffic as background traffic conditions are relatively low. Regarding the operation of Robbins Lane, specifically the at-grade railroad crossing, a more detailed evaluation of conditions was performed on that roadway from Ariel Way south to Marlene Drive south of the LAE using a more specialized analysis software package, VISIM. This analysis evaluates conditions in more detail, actually modeling specific gate-down events at the railroad crossing, and accurately predicting the length of vehicle queues stopped at the crossing and the signals on Robbins Lane to ensure there are no queues are not excessive and that blockages will not occur. The results of this analysis reveal that the operation of the site will have little effect on queues at the crossing or the traffic signals on Robbins Lane with no blocking or spillback issues. The proposed traffic signal will be linked to the existing traffic signal at Miller Place and work together with that signal to coordinate their operations, assuring that traffic can exit the site and leave to the south without long queues of traffic developing in either direction on Robbins Lane. Similarly, the weaving area on Miller Place in the vicinity of the LIE ramps and the DPW driveways was evaluated with VISIM. This study indicates the introduction of the anticipated traffic here will not cause any issues with the operation of the weaving section, with good levels of service prevailing. The roadway improvements to be performed as part of the site's development, based on low levels of impact due to project traffic, are therefore related to the site's access points and site frontages, including a new signalized exit-only driveway on Robbins Lane. Our study found that all access points will operate well, with low delays, and the introduction of the site traffic will not have any significant negative effect on traffic conditions in the area. In closing, based on our detailed study, it is my professional opinion that the approval and operation of the site as proposed will not result in any significant negative impacts on traffic conditions in the study. Mr. Warner, to your specific point, and you hit the nail on it. You hit the nail on the head with a great question, and it's precisely why we do these studies. What we do is we look at the traffic conditions on area roadways, including intersections and other critical areas like the weaving section. In this case, we looked at 12 intersections, including South Oyster Bay Road or the North Service Road, and of course the South Service Road, because that bridge is critical. So we use a fairly advanced software package to determine traffic levels of service without the project. And traffic levels of service are quantified in terms of vehicle delay. What if you would arrive at that intersection eastbound, westbound, for instance, without the project, you might sit at that light for 12 seconds. And then we introduce the traffic from the proposed application. On top of that, we rerun the calibrated model and we see, do we add a significant level of delay to that existing condition? And in this case, it is clear from the study concludes that we will not add a significant level of additional delay. With regard to Miller Place and the entry drives to the site, the VISIM model looks at that section of Miller Place as a weaving section. Vehicles are moving in and out, left, right, crossing each other. And that looks at speeds and vehicle density. And in this case, again, and a lot of this is due to the fact that we are generating traffic off-peak when there is capacity available on the roadways. When we introduce the levels of traffic that we anticipate, again, we have very small increases in delay in those areas. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. But you know, I mean, I use South Oyster Bay Road quite a lot, and you know, a lot of times, no matter what time of the day I get there, there's always a large queuing, and it's a double queue to make a left-hand turn onto Miller Place. And I mean, I've been, you know, well over the top of the bridge when you know, when I stop. So I'm just wondering, you know, I understand how you do things and the methodology, but you know, I'm just concerned with, you know, I mean, if you get 5 or 6 vans at one time that hit that area because they're coming from all over the place, you know, it could cause a problem, you know, past the eastbound service lane, the light at the eastbound service lane.
The, well, what we did was look specifically at when the vans were gonna return and how many. So that's that PM arrival period between 8 and 9 o'clock when the highest number of vans come back. Some of them are gonna make that left turn over the bridge. Some of them are gonna come off the LIE, and some of them are gonna use the ramps off the LIE. So we apportion that traffic, and I think Brad alluded to it a little bit. They leave in, call it waves on 80 on each side of the building over the course of 20 to 25 minutes. So you'll never see 80 vehicles leaving the site at once. And then they go out and they deliver their routes, and when they come back, because they are a distance from the site and they have their various stops, although they'll come back over an hour and a half, 2-hour period, they're not arriving en masse.
I can understand, you know, the coming back, because I mean, it depends on the driver, how many stops he has, how fast he does it, whatever. But you know, in the morning when you're leaving, you know, you could, you know, 80 trips. It's 160 trips actually, because you've got 2 sides of the building. You know, I mean, you could get a large backup at Miller Place and Robbins Lane. Because they either they have to make a left or a right, and you know, then once you make the left, the left, now you're forced to have another light.
Right.
So I mean, have you done anything with the state as far as signalization so that you don't get a backup on those 2?
Yes. Again, the 80 vehicles that are on the west side of the building that are going to egress from the site at the proposed traffic signal, that's going to take place over 10 or 15 minutes. They're not all, nobody's going to wave a checkered flag and off they go. But to your point, we recommend in our report that the new traffic light be synchronized with the traffic light at Miller Place. So they will be timed together so that the greens and reds coincide, so that there are no queues. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
And again, we use the software program Vissim specifically so we could model those queues and make sure there weren't any problems. And you know, this study was reviewed by your traffic consultant, and it's a town road, but it'll be a Nassau County signal, and the New York State DOT is involved in as well, and they've reviewed all the analysis and found it to be appropriate.
I have just 2 more questions. Coming off of the expressway when you're going westbound, there's a South Oyster Bay ramp and there's a Robbins Lane ramp. Is there enough room for, let's say, vehicles, your trucks or whatever, that are coming there to you know, easily, not easily, but to make it across to get to the stacking lane so that they can get back onto the property?
Yes, that's one of the things that the Vissim model looked at, and we looked at if I can just walk away from the microphone for a second, I'm going to point out the weaving section on the Long Island Expressway. There are ramps that come in and off the Long Island Expressway here, and I'll repeat when I get back to the microphone, but the analysis takes into account the distances and the traffic flows between the ramp, the South Oyster Bay Road light as well, and our driveways.
And my, oh, do you want to repeat
You want
that?
to just repeat?
Sure. In response to the question, I pointed out the weaving area on Miller Place, the North Service Road, the ramps from the Long Island Expressway, and indicated that our specific modeling was performed just for that purpose, to make sure that there was adequate distance from those ramps to the driveways, as well as the DPW driveways, which I noted we looked at the time of the day when we're contributing traffic, and it worked out rather well.
Just one other question. I'm just sitting here looking. Since you have two sides to the loading areas, and it appears that the trucks on the west side of the building, using the Robbins Lane exit, will be either going north or south. Are they loaded in accordance with where they're going? Do you understand my question? Like, you know, I mean, because these can go north, would the west side handle the people that have to go north, and the east side handle other, you know, is that something that is done?
It would make sense. Brad, are you still listening, Brad? Is Brad available?
I'm here. I'm trying to understand the question there related to the east and west side to the building.
Yeah, can the vans the small number of vans that are going to travel, for instance, northbound on Robbins Lane, can those be, can we ensure that those are loaded on the west side of the building?
I don't.
My understanding is that is how operationally it would work, is that we would not have vans load on the east side of the building, head out on Miller Place, and then make a right-hand turn on Robbins Lane.
Yeah, and that's the way we loaded the model as well.
Okay, that's my question. And just one other. The trailers that are coming to the site, are they tandems, or are there any tandems, or are they all single box?
My understanding is they're all single, no tandems,
Okay.
you know, highway tractor trailers.
Right, and they would all be, I would assume, becoming, going eastbound on the expressway and have to get off and take the service road and then go back across on
Correct.
the South Oyster Bay Road and make the left-hand turn.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is this facility now designed for maximum capacity? Is this as large amount, a number of cars and vans that we could possibly have at this site?
Brad, can you confirm the 608, where we got that number from?
The 608 parking on site,
The number of vans, the number of delivery vans.
yeah, that was based on discussions with town staff around their requirements related to the vehicle parking. That's how we landed on the 608 in the blue area.
I'm just concerned, can there be any deviation as you functioning this facility from that 608? And you get a Christmas rush, you need to grow.
The question did not come through clearly. Pat, can you repeat what the board member's asking?
The 608, that's the focus of the application, and I guess is reflected in the studies. Is that a number that's going to exist, or is there going to be some sort of holiday rush that might push that number higher?
Any deviation, growth.
Any deviation or growth from that number?
So we anticipate there may be less than that. During the holiday periods, there may be an increase at the site, but the 608 is the amount of parking that we believe the steady state capacity operations are, and that there may be lower numbers than that. There may be minor deviations, and then at the peak period, our understanding is that based on the parking at the site, that is what we would be utilizing.
Can I have one? Oh, go ahead, James.
Two questions. The gas station, are they all going to be going to the same gas station, or do they have a gas card that go to different gas stations in the morning or in the evening?
So they go to different gas stations. We've worked with municipalities in a variety of different manners. If there's a specific gas station, for instance, that is near the site and leads to any particular sort of traffic issues related to our van usage, we've worked with communities to sort of modify and distribute the vans to different gas stations and make those delivery service provider partners of ours aware of the gas stations in the vicinity. We obviously, as I mentioned during my operational description, we encourage our drivers to fuel their vehicles on their way back to the site so that the vehicles are full in the morning. And so we utilize a variety of different methods with which to distribute the vehicle fueling in the area near the site.
And the second question is, are the private contractors that deliver for Amazon going to be allowed in this facility to pick up?
In the facility? So you're saying are the van drivers allowed in the building?
Vans, not the Amazon vans, the white vans. The private contractors.
Yeah, so the Amazon van drivers are all third-party independent contractors. We're migrating our fleet from the white vans, as you mentioned, to Amazon-branded vans, which is what we would anticipate to be parked at this site. The van drivers are part of our delivery service partners. They're third-party independent contractors. Yes, they would be allowed inside the building to utilize the facilities, as needed, the restrooms or break room, either before they get to their vans when they park their personal vehicles, or when they are loading their vans alongside of the Amazon associate to use them at that point as well.
I'm not talking about the 600 vans that you have on site. I'm talking about the other vans from other areas. Are they going to be picking up from this hub also to go elsewhere, or no?
No. So the vans for this location will only be the ones parked on this site. Other delivery stations they operate independent of one another.
So it'll just be vans and private flex deliveries.
Correct. So the flex drivers, like I said, are essentially think of it as Uber, or Lyft, but instead of delivering people to their destinations, the flex drivers come, get packages, and deliver those to their destinations. So those are personal vehicles. Someone shows up in their Ford Explorer or Honda Civic or Jeep. They load their personal vehicle with packages. They perform their delivery routes and head home.
Do the vans have a GPS so you could tell that they're following the traffic pattern that you've set up, or the trucks?
The vans, yes. So the vans utilize the delivery route in order to get to each one of their deliveries and to make sure that they're following the right protocols as far as from an efficiency standpoint, that they're following their route tree. So yes, they have a GPS in them.
And what I was going to ask is that, can you tell if they're following the correct pattern and not making a cut through a...
So that is when they arrive back on site, they undergo a vehicle safety check and then a review of their day's delivery routes to make sure that they were done safely and efficiently, through their 10-hour cycle.
Okay.
And that is reviewed both with an Amazon manager who works at the company, as well as their delivery service company's manager who also works on site.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have one more question. Tractor trailers coming in and using the easterly entrance where they're supposed to. Or wait a minute. Let me rephrase the question. When a tractor trailer is going west on Miller Place, is there any signage or anything that's very prevalent to negate one of these tractor trailer drivers from pulling into that first?
I believe we have a series of signs that direct trucks to Robbins Lane. Let me just confirm. Yes.
So there's signage. So yes, there's signage located at all the driveways directing tractor trailers to make that right in.
And does that seem to work on other sites?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I guess most of your drivers, am I right, are regular, the same people. So once they get there, they're familiar with the routes and, you know what? Familiarity, right.
Yes.
Okay.
Just one more, on Robbins Lane, you mentioned it's a small percentage that would be going north. Roughly what kind of percentage?
About 10%.
About 10%.
About 10%.
I don't know if this question pertains to you, but snow removal?
Let's get Andrew back up
Doesn't
here
look like you
again.
have too much space to put it.
Yeah, so certainly there's a lot of pavement on the site. We do have provisions for the exterior, the perimeter parking areas to be reserved in emergencies, storm emergencies, to stockpile snow there. And then there's also a provision on the plans that, and in accordance with town code, that if there's an excess of storm, it's got to be carted off-site, if necessary, you know. But there's a lot of 39 acres, most of it pavement and building.
I'm just saying, if it snows overnight and you have 600 vans parked, it's gonna be hard to
It looks
plow
like a
that
car
area.
dealership, so to speak.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's certainly.
Do you have any plans to ship it off-site if you have to?
It's, if necessary, that will be what has to happen, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
If there are no further questions, I would just like a few minutes to sum up. You've heard our witnesses, and you have the very complete and comprehensive full environmental review, which was submitted by the applicant and edited to the satisfaction of the Town Department of Environmental Resources. You have the department's recommendation of a neg deck. We believe that we have shown that this proposal complies with the LI zoning district and is an as-of-right use. We've shown that no variances are requested or required. This is the best proposal for the use of the land since Cerro Guaya closed in the early 80s. As shown by Barry Cohn, the site, which was a state cleanup site, has been studied by the New York State DEC and New York State DOH, Department of Health, and, quote, does not pose a significant threat to public health or the environment. Additionally, I'd like to point out that Section 27-1403 of the State Environmental Conservation Law, which is a declaration of policy, finds that it is the policy of the state to clean up these sites and put them back into use. And we are doing exactly what the policy of the state is with this site, putting it back into use. Excuse me. The dynamics of the use by the applicant, as very clearly set out by Brad Griggs, shows that the site has been engineered to have as little impact on the community as possible. There has been so much thought given to this project based upon what has transpired before and how to get trucks on site, cars on site, the vans on site, how to have queuing to make sure that they don't back up into the road, have breaking down the ingress to two sites on Miller Place, breaking up the egress to one site for the vans, one site on one egress on Miller Place and one on Robbins Lane. Everything has been engineered to the top level, and this is going to be a state-of-the-art facility which the town of Oyster Bay can be proud of, I believe. The traffic analysis establishes that the proposed off-peak traffic, the roadway improvements on Miller Place and Robbins Lane, and the proximity to the Long Island Expressway, the layout of the site, and all details presented by Patrick Lenahan establish the traffic has been mitigated to the greatest extent. Off-peak and staggered hours. You can't get much better than that. It's off-peak, leaving and coming back, and they're not leaving, as our traffic expert said, with a checkered flag. They go, as they get filled, they leave. And when they get finished, they come back. So they're more like a flow than and it's an off-peak flow. From all of the above, we think that this is a good application, a compliant application that has really been engineered to the finest, and we would respectfully request that you consider it favorably. Thank you.
Could I just have, I know you did the closing, but is there somebody could just speak on, briefly, lighting and plantings? Just briefly on the light, oh, okay.
So, just quickly to start on planting, just to be clear, we designed the landscaping in complete conformance with the town code regarding landscaping tree requirements. So for each parking space, we have 1 tree for every 6 parking spaces for the standard 9 by 18 parking spaces, not for the van parking spaces, which again are at the rear of the site, not as visible from the public right of way. And then along Robbins Lane, we have a 20-foot landscape buffer, including a decorative variety of flowering trees, shrubs.
I was interested in that.
Yes, so 20-foot, along the entire frontage of Robbins Lane, you've got 20 feet of landscaping, including perennials, trees, flowering shrubs, et cetera. So we work closely with planning staff.
All irrigated.
Yes, irrigated along, with the exception of the rear of the site where it's just grass areas. We chose a drought-tolerant plant for the rear of the site, so it's low maintenance, no irrigation to minimize water usage.
Okay,
And
anything
then-
along, no, probably along the service road?
Along the service road as well, it's a minimum 12-foot strip of, again, decorative flowering plants, beautiful landscaping.
So it's
along-
gonna look good
Exactly.
from the exterior looking in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And lighting, just?
Lighting. So we've got, for the parking lot, it's got to be illuminated, so we have 20-foot lighting poles, LED fixtures, fully shielded in conformance with town code.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, thank you. You did your closing. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Byrne, could I have if no one has any other comments, questions, a motion on the application tonight?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting, leave the record open until 4 p.m. on Tuesday, January 12th, 2021, and for this board to reconvene to consider a decision regarding this application on Wednesday, January 20th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah.
Hold the board, please.
Voting on the motion, Chairman Stenko.
Aye.
Member DiLeonardo.
Aye.
Member Chabina.
Aye.
Member Warner. Member Castellane. Member Byrne is aye. Chairman, the motion passes.
Okay, and before, one more time, I will give you Scott Burns' email, sbyrne@oysterbay-ny.gov for any additional comments, and I know he'd be happy to entertain them for you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much. I asked, I said, George, do you have anything else? But they didn't have any, no.
The girl,
No, she, if needed, she was gonna get in. No, no.
but she said she was going.
If we need, if any clarification.
Julie?
I did this, I did that. Oh, no, I didn't do the whole thing. I just, that's what I needed. Okay.